This program on investing under regulation crowdfunding is not investment advice.
Rising with the crowd, power unbound, change makers lead where hope is found. Superpowers for good, shaping the fate. Investors and dreamers open the gate. Supercross stands loud, proud and true, building tomorrow for me and you.
Welcome to the Superpowers for Good show from the Super Crowd. I'm your host, Devin Thorpe, and I could not be more excited than I am today to have a rock star entrepreneur with us, Troy Helming, who is the CEO and founder of EarthGrid. This is going to be a phenomenal conversation. You just do not want to miss a minute. Troy, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Devin. Appreciate you having me on.
Well, we're thrilled to have you and recognize, you're a big deal. That's just the simple truth. You recently participated in our third quarter live pitch event and won both the Judge's Choice Award and the Super Crowd Award, which was, for me, from my vantage point, a really big deal. But at that same moment in time, almost exactly, I think it was that week, you also won something that, frankly, maybe a bigger deal. You won the Startup World Cup Championship and won $1 million.
That's right.
You got to tell us a little bit about that experience. What was that? And tell us about the competition, what that meant, the whole thing.
Sure. Yeah. First of all, I should start by just saying I'm humbled and, of course, very honored to have come away with the first prize. There was fierce competition, so many great founders and companies, but we have entered a number of competitions over the last several years, and I think we've won almost every one we've entered. But one of them was Pepperdine University's Most Fundable Companies competition. Thousands of companies. So this one, Startup World Cup, was also thousands of companies, and I think they claim to be the largest such competition in the world. But the way it works is they have something like close to 100 cities around the world where they invite startups to apply to be able to pitch on stage. And so we were the winner of the Silicon Valley Regional chapter, which is historically one of the most difficult chapters to win. So anyway, hundreds and hundreds of companies applied to it. And then they selected 15 companies to pitch. We got number one. So we were the regional champion for Silicon Valley. 84 regional champions, including me, were then invited to converge on San Francisco about a month or two later. And, there was roughly 100 cities, 84 people actually showed up. And then we all had to give a 2-minute pitch. It's pretty hard to tell the EarthGrid story in 2 minutes. So I was actually sweating bullets. It's very difficult. And, practicing beforehand and the night before, I kept going over and I was like, oh my gosh, am I going to be able to do it? Because they'll cut you off, right at the 2-minute mark. Anyway, was fortunate to get it in barely by 1 second under 2 minutes, and then made the top 10. And then 2 days later, the top 10 pitched in front of like 2,500 audience members live, plus a panel of, I think, 8 VCs, really, high-powered, esteemed VC judges. And we were fortunate enough to come away with the win, got the big trophy and $1 million investment from Pegasus Tech Ventures, which organizes the event.
Yeah. So that really is impressive, just truly, genuinely impressive.
Thank you.
Was the $1 million in effect a grant or an investment in the business?
It's an investment. It's the latter. In fact, they sent a couple of their folks, including one of their top kind of technical engineers who happens to have a diploma in plasma from Germany. They wanted to come see our technology in action. We were giving live technology demonstrations yesterday and the day before. Anyway, mid-November. I know folks are watching this later. But so they showed up. They were blown away by the technology. We had 3 plasma torches quickly boring, big hole in a huge white granite boulder. But yeah, they're going to be coming in. They're trying to decide whether they come in our last round, which closed and oversubscribed, or in our Series A, which opens up in a couple of months. So they have yet to make that decision.
Okay. You are accustomed to winning. That's become a bit of a pattern. You talked about winning all the competitions you'd entered, but it isn't just in business. As I'm looking at those guns, it looks like you are legitimately an athlete. Is that the 2019 Ninja Warrior competition that you won?
Well, I didn't win the whole competition. I've won some of the regional events, but the young whippersnappers, I'm 57 as of this week, and so this was obviously a few years ago. So my early 50s, and competing with 20-year-olds. So I didn't win the whole thing, but yeah, I've won a number of regional. In fact, the last couple of years, I'm now in the Masters division, which is over 40. There's like nobody over 50 doing this crazy stuff. So I'm winning pretty much all the Masters, but I was competing as a pro for many years with the younger kids, and I even won some of those.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, congratulations. That is impressive. I am your senior by only a couple of years, but I don't win any competition. Well, I guess 3 years ago I won my age group in a 5K.
See, there you go.
Not the same thing, let me tell you. Okay. Listen, very impressive. Let's drill back. You mentioned a little bit about EarthGrid, but and many of the people in our audience probably did see the live pitch, but not all of them. Tell us about EarthGrid. What is the business that EarthGrid is in?
So there's a technology that I invented that leads to the business. So I'll describe the technology first and then the business. So in 2016, I was inspired by a Navy SEAL who was working for my last company that I had started, which is a solar farm developer, builder, owner, operator. Anyway, and he was bragging to his girlfriend in a bar about when he was a Navy SEAL using a plasma cutting torch to go underwater and cut through the side of enemy ships like submarines and ships to go in, take over the ship. Plate rushes in, water, plate falls in, water goes in, they go inside, pow, pow, pow. We're all like, oh, dude, that's amazing. So he was like, yeah, that thing's 20,000 degrees. It could take your arm off. I woke up in the middle of the night and I was like, I wonder if that could go through rock. Because building solar and wind farms for so many years, one of the biggest challenges is putting power lines underground is always like, 7 to 20 times more expensive and takes a long time. Anyway, so I invented a plasma tunnel boring robot. So imagine a little tractor, like a riding lawnmower sized tractor with lightsabers on the front and a Mandalorian jetpack blowing out all the little bits of rock like gravel and sand out the other end. And so we built the first prototype in late 2017. Now it's 2024, near the end of the year, and we have 7 years of testing, over 200 patent claims, over 1,000 trade secrets. We've made money with our first machine and building machines number 2 and 3. And the business is to improve infrastructure. It's not just power, but putting tunnels, and we can also dig trenches or dig holes in the ground or carve out caves like wine caves or storage caves or whatever using our technology. So either tunnels or any kind of excavation. And we can be up to 100 times faster, up to 10 times cheaper in the right conditions, but significantly faster and cheaper than existing tech. And the use case is power, fiber, water, freight, and eventually large-scale transportation, taking things underground. So think of us like an underground real estate company.
This really is impressive stuff. It's kind of science fiction-y. You use a great science fiction analogy, right? Lightsabers and Mandalorian jetpacks, right? To describe.
Well, I have to give my teenage.
Our brains can barely comprehend what you're really doing.
I know.
Without fiction.
It's true. My son helped me with that Star Wars analogy there, but yeah, it is, and you kind of have to see it to believe it. And when people come and see it, like we did some demos, like I was saying, they come away pretty wowed. They're like, yeah, it really is science fiction that I'm witnessing in front of me here.
Yeah, it really is just amazing. Now, you recently completed a funding round, and that round included, of course, a regulation crowdfunding component.
Yes.
Yeah, I think you did a parallel Reg D and Reg CF offering at least simultaneously, which is perfectly legitimate,
Yep.
and raised a good amount of money from the crowd. And because you don't have an offering live as we're recording this and anticipating sharing, we can talk a little bit about those deal terms. I think the pre-money valuation, I'm just going from memory, 69 million, I think. So you had a good pre-money valuation. Is that right?
I think it was closer to 80 million on the crowdfunding, 75 or 80 million, if I remember. But yeah, in that ballpark.
But, you raised at a high valuation, and yet sophisticated, smart people were clamoring to get in because the prospects of the business seemed to be so good. I wonder if you would just take us through some of the highlights of that fundraising effort, especially the crowdfunding side, but you can comment on the Reg D side as well. But a lot of our audience is made up of social entrepreneurs aspiring to be like you, interested in raising money from the crowd. And there's an old rule of thumb in the crowdfunding space that you have to have a consumer business, but your business is not a consumer business.
No, not at all.
And yet you caught the imagination of individual investors. Talk to us about your success.
Sure. Yeah. Again, I'm humbled by the reception that we got on. We used the Net Capital platform for our crowdfunding raise. So yeah, this most recent raise was, as you said, alongside a direct investment for folks who were willing to write a larger check. We wanted to raise a total of 10 million across both the crowdfunding raise and our direct raise, and we ended up raising. It was 14 million as of a week ago, but some of our investors have increased the amount of their allocation. So I think we're going to end up around 15 million. So 50% oversubscribed, which is, again, I'm humbled, particularly in a difficult climate to raise capital right now. The last couple of years has been hard. And to put that in perspective, I'll just give this little statistic out for those of you who are aspiring founders in social justice or climate tech or clean energy or whatever. I had to put a lot of work in. And if you had to guess, for someone who has had a pretty good track record with multiple exits with companies, I had to pitch a lot. If you had to guess, you probably wouldn't guess that I had to, over the last 4 years, that I've had to give over 2,400 pitches, including the one I did with you, Devin, yeah, with tons and tons of angels, and we've raised a lot of capital. But in this latest round, we raised, I believe it was about 1.2 million on the crowdfunding, and then another, 12.8 million or whatever it was in the direct investments, and then that latter part has increased a bit. Prior to this, about a year ago, we also did a Net Capital crowdfunding campaign, and we raised, I believe it was 3.3 million. So on crowdfunding in total across two different rounds at two valuations, obviously it was a lower valuation a year ago. Across those two, we raised $4.5 million with crowdfunding.
This is so important. I want to just drill down on this a little bit more because you were successful doing a hard thing, right? But I wonder if you would just share some tips. Like if you were going to give someone 1 to 3 tips for being successful with a crowdfunding capital raise, what would those tips be?
Yeah. So number one, have a compelling hook. Your message needs to be a hook that will get somebody's attention. In our case, the science fiction, the Star Wars references there is helpful. So have a hook that people can get intrigued enough about to pay attention, because people get bombarded with information, social media everywhere. And so have that hook. Number two, be willing to reinvest some of the money you bring in on the crowdfunding campaign in doing some advertising. If we hadn't have done that, there's no way we would have raised 4.5 million on crowdfunding. We were reinvesting roughly 10 to 20% of all of the funds that came in, and we seeded that initially with some of our own capital, to get it out there. We built the initial pitch on the crowdfunding platform, in this case, Net Capital. We built the initial kind of traction with our own network of folks, but it was only like $100,000. It wasn't all that much, and then we started investing some money in the advertising, worked with a good agency that created good content, and they were tracking when they placed the ads all over the internet, which ones got the most click-throughs, and anyway. And so then we refined and kind of built on that process over some number of months last year. And then we, of course, reused all that content with some tweaks this year. So that'd be number 2, invest in some marketing. And then the third thing is it's very hard, but try to simplify your message. So once you got the hook and they're intrigued and they're going to pay attention, you want them to understand within ideally like 20 or 30 seconds when they go to your landing page, what the company is doing, what your traction is, what you've actually achieved thus far, what the upside is, and how long it's going to take you to get there, and how much your investors are going to make in some kind of an exit event. And then I guess lastly, when that exit event might be. So I said a lot there, but those are I think the things that resonate with folks.
Those are powerful tools, and I really appreciate you sharing them. I wish we could talk about this longer. We got to kind of move on. We're going to take a quick break here. I'm here today with an amazing, accomplished entrepreneur, Troy Helming, who is the CEO and founder of EarthGrid, just an amazing entrepreneur. We're going to shift gears when we come back from the break and talk to him about his superpower. So stick around. You don't want to miss this.
Download a free copy of How to Make Money with Impact Crowdfunding, the book Sarah Hanks describes as
a fantastic overview, not just of crowdfunding investing, but of investing in general.
Andrew Savickas raved,
"This book offers unparalleled insights for anyone looking to make a difference."
Scan the QR code to get your copy.
Ready to take your small business to the next level? Honeycomb Credit empowers diverse entrepreneurs by connecting you with community-driven funding. Build customer relationships, amplify your brand, and grow with those who believe in you. Honeycomb Credit, where your community invests in you.
Scan the QR code to start today.
Join the Impact Crowdfunding movement. Get Superpowers for Good, your free daily newsletter with exclusive video replays, a podcast, and the latest investment opportunities open to everyone. Join the super crowd. Scan now so you can learn to make money while you make a difference.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm thrilled to have you here. I'm so excited. We've got with us an amazing entrepreneur, Troy Helming, who is the CEO and founder of EarthGrid. We've been talking about his business, which is a legitimate, amazing business that has real implications for being, science fiction quality, exciting business. We're going to shift gears. We're going to talk to Troy about his superpower. Now, stick around. Troy, you really are a big deal. And I'm grateful that you would take the time to be on the show today. I appreciate you sharing the tips and insights you've shared with us. I've learned a lot. I know our audience has. What is your superpower?
And it's my pleasure to be here. So I would say I kind of have 2 characteristics that have really helped me, particularly in the last, say, 10 years of my career. The first one is self-discipline. And that's a trait that in studying the lives of successful women and men throughout history, they really just had one trait in common, and that's self-discipline. So that's critical. I have to admit that I didn't have terrific self-discipline when I was younger, but that improved as I got into sports. That really helped me. It just kind of happened naturally because the coaches forced us to work. I was on the track team, the swim team, gymnastics, did a number of things growing up. And so, you kind of get in this habit of doing your weight training on the off days and, practice and all of that. And so anyway, athletes have it. Of course, people in military have it. But so it's something you can learn. You don't have to be born with it. And you can incrementally improve your self-discipline, baby steps, right? So that's number 1. Number 2 would be tenacity. And what I mean by that is being able to kind of strengthen the muscle of overcoming failure. And that can be, in sales, you get turned down at least 80% of the time, right? You're an amazing salesperson if 20% of the accounts you're working on say yes. It's usually more like 5 or 10%. And so you have to hear no a lot and be okay with it. In my case, my sport of choice has been, since I got out of college and stopped doing gymnastics and so forth, has been rock climbing and Ninja Warrior. We've talked about Ninja Warrior, but in both of those sports, you fail all the time. You know, you end up in the drink, in the water, or on the mats at a Ninja Warrior obstacle gym somewhere. And you have to figure out how to try it again and again and again. And, you know, when I first started training for that sport, and it's the same in rock climbing, right? You have to figure out the path, and you don't make it the first time very often, occasionally, but usually you have to fail a lot. And in either one of those sports, and there's a lot of other examples, so I recommend to folks, choose something where you have to fail. But in those cases, there were times where, oh gosh, you know, I don't want all these people standing around here to watch me fall off this wall in the climbing gym, or fall off this obstacle and, you know, smack on my back on the mats. But once you kind of learn to overcome that, and you do it, and then you do it more, and then you do it more, it just becomes something that is okay. You just become okay with that failure. You know, it doesn't matter if you fail at that point. It's what matters is, do you get back up off the mat and try it again, and keep trying until you succeed.
That is a powerful, powerful pair of superpowers, and I'm impressed. As you think about these, I want to drill down just a little bit. We've got just a little bit of time left, but let's focus on the tenacity that you were talking about. I wonder if you can give us a specific example from business where you felt like that tenacity really came into play, a story that would illustrate that superpower for us.
Yeah, well, two come to mind. The first one is the number of pitches. Like after Silicon Valley Bank imploded, I live in the Silicon Valley area, and a lot of capital is here, and there's other pockets of capital all over the world. But anyway, the fundraising climate became very, very challenging. It was just really hard to raise capital for a variety of reasons. Not just that, but that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. So just being willing to go out and spend the time to put our profile on Gust or Dealum or some of the other online platforms to get exposed to various angel networks. And, you know, you pitch to the screening committee and they say yes or no. And then you pitch to the group and they say yes or no. And then you have a bunch of follow-up pitches with people that missed the main presentation or want to, see it again and ask more questions. Anyway, and so just putting in that work. 97% of the people I pitched to either ghosted me or said no. So out of all those over 2,000 pitches, and we track it in my calendar, you know, export all the ones that had, you know, investor in there or VC or capital or whatever. Anyway, so we tracked all that, but over 2,400 pitches, only 3% said yes. And so it got to a point where I was like, okay, it's a numbers game. It's not personal, you know, don't take it personally. And every time I got to, you know, the next 33rd pitch, I knew, you know, roughly 3 out of 100 were going to say yes. So every 33, I tracked it. Every 33 pitches, I was like, okay, I'm due for another yes. So that was, I think, important. Another one was earlier in the history of EarthGrid. I think it was 2019. We don't have time to go into too many details, but there was another company that I had kind of licensed a couple of our patents to, and I was involved in that company early on, and they tried to steal the technology. And so for the first time in my life, I was forced to sue somebody. So I had to sue them because they were, again, trying to steal my tech, and I wasn't, you know, I went from being like a 42% owner of that company to 6%. And EarthGrid had been formed 8 years ago, but EarthGrid went dormant when I sold the patents to them. Anyway, long story short, we settled. It was a really good outcome for me. And then they couldn't do plasma anymore. They tried to shift to something else, and now they're out of business. And this is public information. The articles were published. But it was a very dark time for me, you know, because I was like, this world-changing technology that I invented was stolen from me, right? And EarthGrid had, you know, nothing it could do for about 2 years. So that was a very difficult time, but, you know, just stuck through it, the tenacity, and kept, you know, working at it with my lawyers, and eventually, and I'm so competitive, you know, that meanwhile I was doing everything I could. I filed a bunch of new patents, came up with new ideas, and everything that I was allowed to do, I continued working on it until the settlement happened. And then ultimately they went out of business, and we bought the last of their patents back, so we own them completely, bought their old equipment, and hired some of their top people.
That is an amazing story, and I see the resilience, that the tenacity required to endure that. As we wrap up here, I want to thank you for taking the time to be on the show, and
Thank you.
and congratulate you for winning the Superpowers for Good live pitch, and also the Silicon Valley World
Startup
Championship.
Startup World
The Startup World, yeah. You got $1 million. It's a much bigger deal, but I don't remember the name.
They're both
But anyway,
they're both an honor.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. We wish you every success going forward.
Appreciate that.
All righty. Now let's do some good.